Well, over this weekend, millions of people are expected to register to vote. The Electoral Commission also asking people in other countries to register to vote. South Africans living abroad to vote, but there have been some changes to what you need to vote, especially if you're outside South Africa. Hayley Reichert is the co-founder of Operation Watershed. They look at South Africans outside the country. Hayley, good afternoon to you. As I understand the law, a South African outside the country has the right to vote in national elections. How difficult is it?
That's correct. So we are allowed to, we only get the national ballot because we do not live in one of the 9 provinces. Access to voting and registration is problematic. So there's 5 key issues. We've got registration. We really welcome the IEC's portal for overseas registration, so we no longer have to go into our foreign missions to register. However, there are quite a few issues with the registration portal from an IT perspective. Lots of people having issues uploading their documents, and lots of people at the point of giving up. So I'm literally begging and pleading every South African around the world not to give up, to keep persevering, to get hold of me, to try and make sure they get registered in time. Access to voting is a problem. The legislation only allows for us to go and vote at our foreign missions. Now, there's 120 around the world. And due to conflict in certain areas, 3 are currently closed, and there have been about 13 that have closed in recent years. So it's quite limiting. People who live in Cayman Islands, for example, there's I think about 500 families there. They have to fly to either New York or Jamaica. Loads of South Africans in Perth, they have to fly to the other side of the country, in Canberra, in Australia. Some countries in Europe, they have to drive or travel across multiple countries. The guys up in Edinburgh have to come all the way down to London. So a huge amount of effort, cost, taking time off work, that kind of thing, just to be able to exercise their right to vote. We do not have, so overseas voting is deemed a special vote. We do not have special votes like you do back home, if you want to call it an extra special vote. So people who cannot attend the foreign mission on voting day abroad, there is no way of them to vote. So we've got lots of farm workers in America. It's planting season. They can't take time off work. We've got lots of people working on cruise ships and yachts, seafarers around the world, oil riggers, pilots. Those guys cannot, even if they can, if they happen to be on land, but just on a different day, they cannot just go to their foreign mission and register and vote, a few days or a week before. So there is a definite need for improved access to voting. We also have an issue with our foreign missions and Home Affairs Consular Office services. Some people are waiting in excess of 6 months for important documents. Now, because of the loss of citizenship campaign, which is something I started 10 years ago, and many of your listeners and viewers would know that the DAs, they took it to court twice in 2018, 2021. They lost. The Supreme Court of Appeal ruled in their favor in June of last year. However, we are still waiting for the Constitutional Court to ratify and effectively approve the Supreme Court of Appeal's ruling. Once that happens, those who've lost their citizenship when they've acquired foreign citizenship will be able to get their citizenship back. So, yeah, they can't vote either.
Hayley, I mean, look, it's a difficult thing, and I understand that. And there are various things to it. I mean, I understand that a South African overseas has the right to vote, and I think that must be democratic, and we should aim for sort of full democracy. There are arguments against that. But I can also understand, if I were the South African government, Australia is a massive place. The United States has so many different population centres. There's no way you could have a voting station in each one where there may be South Africans. Do you have any ways around that problem? And unfortunately, for various reasons, we do not have electronic voting in South Africa, and I don't think that's going to change for some time. So if we have to use a physical ballot paper, how can we get around it?
So I think we certainly need to look at lobbying in years to come for online voting for everyone, whether you're in SA or other country. So the DA have set up a petition, and I'm certainly encouraging everyone abroad to sign that petition because they are looking for information of where South Africans are. They believe there are 15 key locations where if we could just get a few extra temporary voting stations abroad, that would significantly help access to voting. For example, one up in Edinburgh would make a huge difference. One in Perth would make a huge difference. There is no option for by proxy voting or postal voting. And a lady contacted me, elderly disabled lady contacted me yesterday saying she lives in Cork in Ireland. She cannot travel to Dublin. So if it's a case of the IEC working with DIRCO officials and with independent electoral observers, and whether it's a case of they say, right, on these certain days at these certain cities, we will have a DIRCO representative, an IEC representative, and an independent electoral observer, and we will come to you on a certain day between certain hours, and, to be able to allow you, obviously they can't do every single city and every single place, but if we can focus on the areas where there are key concentrations of South Africans.
Hayley, and I mean, people who are outside South Africa, do you think that they should really be allowed to vote? I mean, I have to say it's quite a small percentage of South Africans who are outside the country who actually vote. So I suppose the question really is, how much interest do they have in our politics if they're not living here at the moment?
I might get into trouble for this one. So nobody knows for sure, but the estimates are around 2 million of us abroad, which is roughly 3% of the population. So it's not a tiny number, if those figures are correct. But unfortunately, due to all these limitations, the previous 2019 elections, 31,000 registered, 19,000 voted. That is a drop in the ocean. I don't have the latest figures, but as of Tuesday, there were 28,000 that had successfully registered. Reasons why we should vote: we are still citizens, we do still care, we live in a global economic society. It's not, and I know there's a tendency to think, oh, we've all run off and abandoned South Africa. And I can tell you, I've been involved with the global South African community for the last 12 years now, and I have only ever come across one grumpy person that I decided to block on social media. Everybody else really does love the country. They're just as frustrated as everyone back home with all the problems that we face. A lot of us send money back home to support family members, involved with charities. When we come home, we are spending our foreign income. We are supporting tourism. I know tourism provides 1 in 7 jobs in the country. Lots of people still have families, friends, businesses, properties. So there are a lot of people who are committed to the country. I know a lot of people, there's enough Facebook groups, about people wanting to return to the country. My long-term goal is to move back as well. So there are a lot of us who long for, to come home one day, hopefully. But for me, it's a case of not just, sitting on my ivory tower abroad and pointing the finger. For me, it is a case of trying to encourage all South Africans to be active citizens every single day. My goal is to speak to at least one person every single day between now and the point that I can come home, to make sure that I'm constantly driving change, to make sure there is a viable option and a viable, safe, secure, prosperous South Africa for me and hopefully everyone else to be able to come home to.
Hayley Reichert, thank you, co-founder of the organisation Operation Watershed. Well, in a moment.